Good morning. Good to see you all today. I was sort of able to get this picture up. It's still a little light. There's a big volcano here. After me and David had spent several days working in Guatemala, we went to this place called Lake Atitlan, which is one of the most beautiful lakes in the world, and at least that's what Wikipedia had told me before I went there. And I can assure you, Wikipedia was right this time. It was great. I was able to spend the last few days with my wife. My children are with my parents in New Jersey at a family pool party. So I was privileged enough to get some alone time with my sweetheart, which was very nice. You know, she's very thoughtful. Every once in a while, you know, she'll hear me say something, you know, gosh, you know, I really could use a great pair of sunglasses or something like that. And I remember a few years ago, she said, "Sweetie, I got you these new sunglasses that you'd really like. They're called HD vision glasses." And I was like, "Oh, okay, let's try them on." And we were driving in the car, and it instantly looked like I was viewing the world through a glass of beer. Everything was amber everywhere. And I'm trying to take it all in, and I'm like, you know, is this real life? Is this real? And there was kind of a running joke for years after that. We'd be driving in the car, and I would say randomly, I said, "Gina, you know, I really wish I could just see everything in HD." It was funny. One of the things that's interesting, you know, if you've ever worn sunglasses for a while and then you take them off, sometimes it catches you off guard how everything looks. Maybe you're on a long drive and you have your sunglasses on, and it starts to get a little bit darker and you realize, hey, I still got my sunglasses on. You take them off and everything looks a little bit different. Or maybe you wore tinted sunglasses, or for a while at work our factory would have blue tinted sunglasses. So everything looked bluish. It was kind of a joke with the guys because we would, a lot of what we had to do was identifying colors of certain things, and it was kind of a joke. But it's an interesting concept, though, that sometimes what you're seeing isn't what's really there, and sometimes what you're accustomed to isn't reality. You get focused on seeing things from your own perspective. And sometimes you need a change of perspective. Last week I talked a bit about the work we did in Guatemala. I showed you this tapestry that was made as a gift for us. We had a really great time down there. And one of the things that I was reminded of, which I'm surprised I forgot, because when I was a teenager, I went to Honduras multiple times and did similar work down there. So I came face to face with some really extreme circumstances and poverty, people living in a different world than I am accustomed to. It's been said that if you have something that you don't have to worry about, it's a privilege. And we're a very privileged people. You take for granted a lot of what is commonplace for us. When I was down there, I was astonished by the fact that I guess the plumbing systems aren't the same. I know this may seem a little bit gross, but when you go to the bathroom, you can't flush your paper in most places. That's not normal. So your cue as you go in the bathroom, if there's a little wastebasket next to the toilet, that's your cue that the building plumbing can't handle flushing your paper. What? I'd never thought of that. That's a new experience. My perspective had to change, that what is just commonplace for me really is quite privileged. We had to take special care where we went to be mindful of what we ate and how we ate it, make sure our hands are clean and the water that we drink, because there's stuff in the water down there we don't have up here, and it can make us sick. It was interesting. One of the things took place. Oh, I'm missing the photo. It didn't go through. Oh, well, that's okay. One of the people we worked with down there, his name was Luis. He was about 50 years old. He was a member of the church down there. He works just selling like handbags and clothing, basically in a street market in the city. And he joined us along in our trip because he speaks English pretty fluently. So we had this great conversation at one point, and I call it great because it really was great. We had just finished a meal, and I'm sitting down at the table, and on the left of me is Luis, and on the right of me is a guy named Mike, who had joined us from Texas. Now, Mike is a police officer in San Antonio. That's his job. He's a cop. He's a patrolman. And Luis had lived for 16 years as an illegal immigrant in Santa Fe, New Mexico. 5 times over those 16 years, he had been caught, arrested, deported, and he came back across. So as you can imagine, you get 3 Christians all around a table with very strong views and opinions, talking back and forth. So me and Mike got to see a very different perspective on that. And one of the things that Luis said that really stood out for me is he said that for people down here, Guatemala or Central America, he said the United States is a place of hope. He said everybody wishes that we could get there. He said down here, if you don't have money, you don't eat. He said, but when I was in Santa Fe, he said if I didn't have food, he said I could go to any number of places and I could have a bowl of soup and I could have a hot meal. He said you have no idea how blessed you are to live in a country like that. He said you guys have hope. He said, so yeah, it didn't matter if I was going to get kicked out. I wanted to get back in. That was an interesting, that was a tough lesson for me to take in because I had to take off my glasses and see with a new perspective. I had to put on his glasses and see things the way he saw it. We ended up talking with a bunch of other different people there, people who were ministry students, evangelists, members of the church. And a lot of them told us similar stories to what Luis said. After the 5th time of getting kicked out, Luis said, maybe I should just not go back. And that's what he did, but I talked to many other people, and a lot of them said the same thing. I'd ask one of the evangelistic students, I'd say, hey, so you know what, how did you end up being an evangelistic student? And one of them said, well, all growing up as a kid, I had hoped to be able to cross into the United States to find work. He said, but, I met a girl and got married, and I didn't want to leave my family behind, and so I found an opportunity to work through the church. He said, but boy, I really hope one day that I'd be able to take my family there. So why do I say all that? I'm not looking to get into a big social discussion or whatnot, but the point of it is that we take for granted in our country that we live in a place of hope. And we sort of take that for granted, that we have something really special going on here. And that's a wonderful thing. I thank God that I live in a place so rich. So during my time down there in Guatemala, I had a lot of time to myself each night to think to myself and chew through some concepts and ideas in my mind and really work through some things. And one of the things that I thought of that really challenged me was if does my faith, as shown through my words and my actions and my church, offer people hope? Does my church group, does my life, do my words, do my actions have anything to offer people on the outside? My country does. That's great. Our country offers hope, and people are going through great lengths to get here. But I don't see people sneaking in the back doors of my house to be with me. I hope not. I don't see people lining up before church service starts here to get in this building. And I'm not trying to knock anyone here. I'm not saying that. But it's a concept to think of. Because when Jesus was in the midst of his ministry, everywhere he went, there were crowds following him. He offered people something. He offered people hope. Whether that was hope of healing from illnesses or diseases, whether that was hope of a meal, or whether that was hope of kindness and mercy and forgiveness. He offered that to people. If you've ever been in a hopeless situation, you know that there's really no worse feeling than that feeling of hopelessness. So Jesus offered something to somebody, and they wanted it. They wanted it. So much so that they would cut openings in ceilings to drop down somebody at the feet of Jesus. He offered people so much hope that outcasts, sick people that were kicked out of social circles would be willing to fight through a crowd of people just to touch the corner of his jacket because he offered them hope. This is stuff that I was asking myself and wrestling with myself. Am I offering hope to anybody? If I am a Christian, if I am a follower of Christ, and I'm not offering hope to people, maybe I'm not doing Jesus right. Does that make sense? If the people that I work with, if the people that I live with in my communities, if the people in my neighborhood don't have hope, and I'm there in their midst, something's not right. Maybe my perspective needs to change. We understand the why. We've been talking about this for a few weeks. Why did Jesus come down to do what he did? Why did he come? That was his purpose, to seek and save the lost. That was the point. That was why Jesus came. It was a deliberate act, deliberate decision, proven by the deliberate way he communicated with people, by the deliberate way he engaged with people. The hands-on ministry of Jesus was remarkable. It was something that the people of his time were not accustomed to, and it gave them hope. And Jesus said to his followers, this is the Great Commission. Some of you may be familiar with this. He says, "Go therefore, make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all these things that I have commanded you." Another passage in James says, "Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world." If I take those three verses together, the whole purpose, the whole motive, the whole driving force behind what we do should be, number one, to seek and save the lost. That's the point. That was Jesus' point. That should be our point. The second part of it is to go out. Go. It's an active word. Not to go out and make converts. That's not what it says. It doesn't say go out and make converts. It's easy to sit down with somebody and say the prayer and congratulations, this is your new walk. Go along and go with God. That's not what it says. It says to make disciples. Make disciples. What Jesus did with his followers is he literally said, put down your stuff and come with me. Like, that's actually what he said. Put that down and come with me. I'm going to make you fishers of men. He came up to Levi, a tax collector. He's working at his booth, doing his thing, working his job. He says, you, let's go. That's actually what happened. I'm not exaggerating that. And then through the course of the next several years, as these men followed with them, he taught them. He trained them. He encouraged them. Sometimes he rebuked them. He made disciples. And then he says to those same people, go and do the same thing. What I just did with you, go and do that with others. Of all nations, of all places, go and do the same thing. He was deliberate in his actions. Is this dead? There we go. Oh, there's the photo. There we go. So here's Luis, and here's Mike. And it was a wonderful exchange. You can see, you can just see the passion in his face. And you can see by the way Mike was reacting that Mike was seeing, like I was, Mike was seeing things from a different point of view. Both of us were very humbled. Mike comes at this from a law enforcement point of view, right? So he has to deal with the drugs and the violence and the stuff that comes out. But the point Luis was trying to make was that I'm trying to get there because that's where hope is. So that's what made me ask the same question. If we're followers of Jesus, if we understand the why of what we do, and we understand what Jesus has asked us to do, then do the people around us have hope because of it? Do our communities have hope because of it? Hope is a powerful thing. The way I carry myself, the way I engage with people, all of this is stuff that is either going to give people hope or it's going to take hope away from people. That's what it's going to do. You know, it's easy, backtrack for a second. When we were down there in Guatemala, we were doing some construction. We're helping out a church with some building. We were evangelizing with people. A whole bunch of people were baptized. We were giving out, food and necessities to people in need. That's awesome stuff. That's awesome stuff. That's exactly what we should be doing. Why do I have to go to Guatemala to do that? Why do I view Guatemala as a mission zone and not my own neighborhood? You understand what I'm saying? So why do I come back and then stop doing that? Why do I stop? Why am I not doing that here? And these are questions I'm asking myself. I'm literally sitting in the airplane, and David thought I was sleeping, so he kept poking me. But I was awake. I was awake. I think finally I said to him, I said, stop it, I'm writing a lesson. He was like, what? I said, stop it, I'm writing a lesson. Because sometimes I have to literally just stop and zone out and think through things. I know there got to be other people that do the same thing. Sometimes there's so much going on that I literally have to isolate my mind in order to work through things. And that's what I was doing for a couple hours on the airplane. I was doing all of this. A few days ago, my wife said, honey, you got to get done your lesson. And I said, I already know what I want to say, because this is something that weighed heavily on my heart. We did great work down there. Why do I not do that here? Why do I not do that here? This may be a very privileged country. We may be very wealthy, but surely there are people around here that could use some hope. This brings me to this thing that popped up in my head. The number one priority of the church should be those outside the church. That's the number one priority. That's the reason why we exist. The number one priority of the church should be the unchurched. That's the unchurched in our neighborhoods, the unchurched where we work. That's the unchurched in these houses all around here. That's our number one priority. That's what it should be. Luke chapter 5. We talked about this today in the class. In Luke chapter 5, it's an interesting chapter. Right at the beginning of it, you have a bunch of fishermen fishing poorly, not catching anything, and Jesus, to them, a random stranger walks up and says, "Hey, I got an idea. Throw your nets on the other side of the boat." So they do it. And they're overflowing with fish, and they realize this there's something special about this guy. And he says, "Come with me. Stop what you're doing. Come with me. We're going to go fish for people." And then immediately after, you have three interactions between Jesus and other people. You have Jesus interacting with the man with leprosy, a man so diseased and infectious that he wasn't even allowed to go to the temple, wasn't even allowed within the walls of the temple to worship God. Literally an outcast. And Jesus places his hands on him and loves him, heals him, and gives him hope. Gives him hope. The next person he comes across is a man who's paralyzed. And Jesus had started to garner a reputation as giving hope to people. And there were so many people outside of this house that Jesus was in that this man's friends knew that they couldn't get him there. They climbed up onto the roof. Some of you may be familiar with the story. They open up a hole in the roof. They tie ropes on the guy, and they drop him down right in front of Jesus. It would have been easy for Jesus to say, "Hey, there are 50 people outside this door who were here before you. There are 50 people outside this building who also have baggage and who have illnesses and whatever. And, that was rude of you to just kind of cut in line." But you know what? That's 50 people who weren't desperate enough to see Jesus, that they were willing to use their hands to crawl through the ceiling to get to him. Because that man knew that Jesus offered hope. And not even a wall, not even a roof, not even a crowd was going to stop him from getting to hope. And Jesus had mercy on him. He forgave him, and he healed him. It says right after that, Jesus walks out and he sees Levi. This is the guy I was talking about earlier. He's a tax collector, sitting at his booth out in the road, doing his thing, collecting his taxes. And Jesus literally says, "You, let's go." And he stops. And right after that, Levi says, we need to have a banquet. We need to have a big meal. We need to have a feast. There's something special going on. Let's celebrate. And Jesus sits down and shares a meal with sinners. Whoa. Hang on now. You're telling me that Jesus, the Son of God, offered hope to people who needed it? Come on now. That's crazy. That's crazy talk. Jesus was a holy man. He had no business associating with sinful people. That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying, is that Jesus gave hope to whoever needed it. Were you sick? Didn't matter. Were you sinful? Didn't matter. He gave hope. He gave love. He gave kindness. And people around him were stirred up and were inspired because of it. The Pharisees, the religious leaders of the day, weren't too happy that Jesus, a big wrecking ball, just smashed down the status quo. And that all these barriers that had been put in place by people that said that you're not allowed to come to church, you're not allowed to come to the temple, you're not allowed to worship God until you're clean, Jesus smashes down those walls. Says, okay, I'm going to bring God to you. I'm going to bring hope to you, where you are at. That's remarkable. That's remarkable. So the Pharisees, who are kind of unhappy with Jesus, they pull his disciples aside and say, "Hey, why is this guy eating with these people? Why is he sharing a meal with these people? You know what Jesus' response was? He said, those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. Could you imagine you had the flu or a cold or something like that, and you knew you had to go to your doctor's, and you go to the doctor's office, and they have a sign at the door that says, no sick people allowed. Right? I mean, that's funny right there. That's funny. You go to a Weight Watch meeting, there's a big sign at the front that says, no chubbers. It's like, are you serious? That's why you're here. That's why I'm here, is so you can help me with that. People go to a doctor because they think this is where I can get well. This is where I can get better, right? People were coming to Jesus because he was offering them hope. And they brought along a whole bunch of baggage. Sinful pasts, sinful choices, mistakes. They brought all of that. All of that junk. All of that dirty stuff. And Jesus gave them hope. While others would say, sorry, you need to straighten that out before you can come back. Jesus offered hope. So these are some of the hard questions I was asking myself. As a member of the church, is my priority the unchurched or myself? I love you guys. I do. But that being said, I've been a part of this church for all of my conscious existence. From the time I was this tall, yes, I was once small. From the time I was 3 years old, I've been a part of the Church of Christ. And I thank God for that. That is a privilege that many don't have. So I love you guys. I do. And I value you. I value your contributions to my life. That's great. But there's a lot of other people that don't have what I have. That don't get to experience the types of relationships that I have with some of you. You guys encourage me. You guys give me hope. You guys inspire me. You motivate me to good works, as you should. But let's bring some of this out there. Right? Let's bring some people out there in here so they can have some of that too. I'm telling you, this church is a buffet for my soul. I come here and I get filled. I get filled. But there are people out there who spiritually are starving. Let's get them in here. And if we can't get them in here, let's bring here to them. Wherever they're at. Whether that's a soup kitchen, whether that's an AA meeting, whether that's community service, whatever it is, let's connect the sick with the healer. Because I know the great physician. I know Jesus. And I know what he means to me. And I need to introduce him to some others. And if people are looking at me and my words and my life and my actions, and they're not given hope by that, then I need to work on myself. Because I'm not being a good representative of Jesus. Because when Jesus was doing his thing, people were inspired. People had hope. So if I'm not doing that for others, then I got to work on that. I got to work on myself so I can be better at it. Because I want to be a hope giver. That's what I want. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, really the whole chapter is relevant. But I want to highlight just a few particular things. The disciples, after the Great Commission, Remember when Jesus said, go and make disciples, baptizing, teaching? They started doing that. And within a few decades, the church had spread all over the Mediterranean region. There were many great and wonderful evangelists who did great things in cities. All sorts of different peoples were reached out to. All sorts of people. Some people with religious backgrounds, some people with other religious backgrounds. They were all sort of mixed and blended together, and sometimes they had difficulty working things out because each one brought their own history, their own cultures, their own practices, and it took a little bit for everyone to kind of get into a rhythm with each other. And one of the things that was said here in 1 Corinthians chapter 12 is that we are one body. One body. But within that body contains many different parts. Many different parts. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? But in fact, God has arranged the parts of the body, every one of them, just as He wanted them to be. If they were all one part, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, but one body. If you look at the people that Jesus called to follow Him, they were all from different lines of work. You had blue-collar workers, you had fishermen, you had a physician, you had tax collectors, you had people with religious backgrounds. If the point of Jesus was just to be leading a great preaching ministry, then you think everyone He picked would be powerful speakers and teachers. But that's not what He did. He picked some people that were good at handling money. He picked some people that were good at healing people. He picked other people that were just good at getting their hands dirty. And He assembled this ragtag crew of people together. And they gave hope to people. Is that not what God has done in this building? Not every one of us has the same gifts and abilities. We know that. Not everyone can get up here and song lead. I did once like 2 years ago and it bombed bad. So I know that's not my thing. I thank Joe that he does what he does. I thank Louise for doing what she does because they're good at it. But each one of us has a contribution that we can give to the body. Each one of us has unique gifts and abilities. If you need a hug, Terry's got a gift for hugging. You know why? Because that woman's got a lot of love in her. And when she tells you she loves you, she means it. There's no doubt about it. And there are people in this building who will literally give you the shirt off your back. You're sick, you're hurting, you need a meal, there are people who will make you a meal. When we have kids' classes in desperate need of teachers, we are in desperate need of teachers for the kids' classes. Okay? Talk to Marty. She didn't ask me to say that, but I'm sure she's thankful I did. Let me tell you, if you don't know whether or not teaching is your gift, start out with some little kids. You can't go wrong. You never go wrong when you're taking care of the kids. You can never go wrong. I would encourage you to look at yourself and see, what can I do? What can I do more than I'm doing now? You don't have to get up and preach. You don't have to song lead. But maybe you can teach a kids class. Maybe the next time we have a community event, you can take the lead in helping to organize that. Right? The next time an email goes out that says Peter Morse is looking for helpers for the food pantry in town, give up a Saturday. Wow, that sounded so Boston. Give up a Saturday. Give up a Saturday. Bag some food for people. Give hope. We need every single one of you because there are things that some of you can do that I'm not good at. There are things that I can do that other people aren't good at. And if we all had the same gift, if we all had the same function, we wouldn't be very effective. We need each other. We need each other to make a concerted effort to giving hope. To giving hope to those around us, giving hope to the community, to introducing sick people with the great physician. I like this photo. This is actually kind of a candid photo. I was fiddling with my phone. I didn't even realize I had taken it. This is my finger right here. But we were just knocking on a door in Guatemala. I don't know what we were going to see. I don't know. Maybe they were going to slam the door in our face and tell us to go away. The girl behind that door is 15 years old. That night she ended up being baptized, and the next day we returned with enough food for her and her family for about a month. Why? Because we knocked on a door. That's all. Charge. But this is as simple as it is. You know what we set out to do that day? We said, let's just go meet some people. This is what I said to them. I said, let's go, because we were partnering with some evangelistic students, and all they wanted to do was just dunk people. And I said, listen, we're here for more than that. Let's find out what needs we have in the community. And I want you to tell me what the needs are in the community. I said, if you come across a house where there are kids that don't have clothes, let me know, and I'll go to the market and I'll buy clothes. And we did. So if you come across a house where there are people who are hungry, let me know, and we'll buy food for them. And we did. And that's all we did. We knocked on that door because we wanted to know if that person needed hope. And we gave her hope. And we introduced her to the great physician. We brought the church to her. And we loved on her. It's simple. It's not complicated. That's what Jesus did. He just walked around and loved on people. Sometimes he found people, sometimes the people found him. But that's what he did. He stepped out of the church and amongst the people. He met them where they were at, and he gave them hope. I got two photos here. This is a campfire at my house around the 4th of July. If you've never had a campfire around my house, you're missing out, okay? This is what mainstream Christianity has become. It's there. It's still glowing. There's some warmth there. But you know what? That's what it should be. That's my kind of a fire. That's my kind. That's what it means to let your light shine. I think for a large portion of my life, this was me. This was me as a Christian. Yeah, there was a little bit of fire burning, but it wasn't warming a lot of people. Let's say that again. This was me for a long time as a Christian. I had a little bit of a fire burning, but it wasn't warming a lot of people. That's more like it. I think as a church we can do that. Amen? I think as a church we're called to do that. We're called to bring the world hope. We're called to bring the world light. We're called to introduce sick people to the great physician. It doesn't matter whether that's partnering in Guatemala. I hope you can. It's great work. But the mission work doesn't end just because I've come back to my home and my community. My calling, what I'm supposed to be doing as a Christian is daily. It's everywhere. So I would encourage you to remember what Jesus did. Remember how he engaged people where they were, even in the midst of their sin. He gave them hope. And know that every single one of you have a contribution to make. Every single one of you has a unique and special and wonderful gift that can be used to bring hope to people. That's what we're called to do. That's what Jesus did. So I hope that you think about that. Let's close with a prayer. Dear Lord, I thank you for this beautiful and wonderful day. God, I am so thankful for this church family that I'm a part of. I'm so thankful for the encouragement and the inspiration they give me. God, I thank you for your word, which convicts me, Lord, which renews my mind, God, and helps me to think about new things in different ways. God, I pray that you can help me to be a blessing to those around me. God, I pray that everything I do in my life brings glory to your name and will bring people closer to your Son, Jesus. We thank you so much, Lord. In your Son's precious and holy name that we pray. Amen.